made it through. Great memories. Right around
We're live,
right
Mr. Chairman.
around Cadillac Ranch.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to call the Historic Preservation Commission meeting to order. Mr. Winiger, can you do roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Hill.
Here.
Commissioner Quinn.
Here.
Commissioner Convery.
Here.
Vice Chairman Akins.
Here.
The record will indicate that Chair McCready and Commissioner James have excused absences this evening, and I believe we have a resignation on the part of the seventh commissioner. So that I expect the council will be filling that vacancy in the near future.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Commissioner Hill asked for a point of information.
Yes, unfortunately, at the last meeting, I was not able to attend, so I watched the meeting on television. And as the meeting wore on, our city council representative was in a great deal of dialogue with members of the commission. And that went unheard because he was doing it from his seat. And so if the council and unfortunately he's not here right now.
He just walked in.
Oh, he did. I hope he's here. He hears this. That wasn't heard over the television, and I lost all contact what was really going on at the meeting. So if we can encourage addresses from the audience to use the microphone or mic him up.
Be at the podium. I think the
Yeah.
podium.
We'll ask him to come to the podium tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. One other point of information that Mr. Winiger talked about, we do have a resignation, therefore we have an opening on the commission. In last Friday's advertisement, it advertised that needed to be a resident of Ojai. I talked to Gail Fletcher, who is our new deputy city clerk and records manager, and that is not correct. The correct ad will run this Friday. It can be, does not necessarily have to be a city resident. We were functioning with 2 non-city residents, myself and Chair McCready, and then 5 residents. So again, the municipal code states that the Historic Preservation Commission can have up to 3 non-residents. So
Correct.
I'm told that will come out corrected in tomorrow's paper. So if you're interested, apply, please. Public communications. Members of the public wishing to address the Historic Preservation Commission on items appearing on the agenda are requested to complete a speaker's card and file it with the secretary prior to the start of the Historic Preservation Commission meeting. Cards are available in the council chambers lobby. All comments should be limited to 3 minutes unless additional time is granted by the chair. Speakers should state their name and address for the record and must direct their comments to the chair, not the audience or press. While the Historic Preservation Commission is in session, members of the commission, city staff, and members of the audience are expected to maintain order and decorum and to obey the orders of the chair. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to recognize Mark Lewis, who president of the Ojai Valley Museum, to come and give us updates.
Thank you, Vice Chair Akins. Commissioners, Mr. Winiger, we are happy to continue to be preparing to celebrate the centennial of the Libby Makeover. Big party in the park, April 8th, which will reenact the original big party of 100 years ago, which marked the change of the name from Nordhoff to Ojai and the essentially the unveiling of all the new Mission Revival architecture downtown. Of course, that was just the beginning of the Libby Makeover, but that was when they celebrated it, and we're going to celebrate it citywide in the park, community invited, April 8th. The show at the, or I should say the exhibit at the museum that will be up through the 9th is currently about that topic. It's called Inventing Ojai. If you haven't had a chance to see it, we urge you to come. This Sunday might be a good time to come because we're also doing a town talk. Yours truly is going to present a town talk about how Ojai beat Santa Barbara to the punch in terms of being the first Southern California community to do its own self-mission revival makeover. And if you've ever wondered, gee, 1917, they were 1925, how come we don't get credit? Well, you're right, and come on over to the museum at 4:30, and you can listen to my rant on that same topic. I'll keep it polite. Beyond that, on the matter of the museum building gates, I'd just like to let you all know that Doug Lochner has agreed to take another look at the design, and we will be coming back to you folks as soon as he comes back to us with something that we can present. We'll ask staff to put it on your schedule. Thank you very much. Oh, and I should point out, by the way, tonight you're touching on the library's new Maravilla. Is that the name of it, John? Maravilla. The Friends of the Library, of course, has restored a Libby Legacy building. We have a nice photo of that in our exhibit because it's part of the whole Libby Legacy, and so I thought I'd note that. Bye.
Great, thank you, Mark. We are checking to make sure that we are being broadcast. My phone's vibrating from a certain individual who is quick to point that out, so. We're good? Okay,
Mr. Chairman, at this point, it'd be appropriate to take public comments.
great. I have one speaker card, seems timely according to Mr. Lewis's comments he just made, so I'd like John Lambert, if you could come to the podium, please.
John Lambert, I live at 11 Taormina Lane here in Ojai. I have the privilege of continuing to be the president of the Ojai Valley Library Friends and Foundation. I want to just take a moment to say thank you to this group. The process of rebuilding the old Libby land office is complete, including the room in the back, which is a meeting room for the library and community use. We opened it on the 22nd of last month, and we already have a line of people from the community who have already started using it and are looking forward to use it. We take great pride in the fact that the facade of that building, as you stand in front of the oaks and look at it, looks like that old picture. We worked very hard to do that with a very large amount of support from this group. It's just a little over 6 months ago that I stood here and we began the process with the Historic Preservation Commission of going through all the different steps. So that's not a bad time frame. And we're very happy with what we were able to produce. We're very thankful of the support that this commission and the city as a whole has given to us. And we're very glad that the city of Ojai and the community of Ojai has started using it well. So thank you.
Thank you very much. As Mark alluded to, the museum recently had an exhibit opening in highlighting the 100 years of Ojai and 50 years of the museum. And I will tell you that your restoration was one of the items that people discussed. They appreciate the fine work that you've done, the beauty that it is now, and several people commented on the enjoyment of having the holes there in the wall so they could peek through and see what was going on. So that was also a highlight in the discussion. So thank you very much for that. Okay, any other public comments? Anybody else that'd like to come up? Great, thank you very much. This time then we'll do consent items, minutes of the January 12th, 2015 meeting. Any comments by the commissioners? I do. Just a small one. Under roll call, it says museum liaison, then it has a comma. It should be, I believe, a colon. But on, that's for Pat Clark Donor. She used to do that for us. On page 2, the Akins and Commissioner Akins is spelled correctly. The Akins under Chair McCready's comments is not spelled correctly. Although it might be. We're going to Ireland in the summer and we'll check on that. So if we could just get that corrected. So any other observations?
I don't see anything.
Do we have a motion?
I move we accept the minutes as corrected.
I second.
Okay. Thank you for the motion, Commissioner Quinn, and thank you for the second, Commissioner Convery. Do we call for a roll call or do this by acclamation?
It's your choice, but I'll do call the roll just for the,
Would you do so,
yes,
please?
sure. Commissioner Quinn,
Yes.
Commissioner Convery,
Yes.
Commissioner Hill,
Abstain because I was absent.
Vice Chair Akins.
Yes. Thank you
Motion
very
carries.
much. Okay, disclosure of site visits and ex parte contacts by commissioners.
I visited the arcade and looked at all the signs.
Oh, good.
None. Didn't visit anything.
None by me, so thank you. We will then move to public hearing item number 1, or public hearing item, it's number 2 on the agenda. This is for the sign permit that we just alluded to. Staff report, Mr. Winiger.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the commission. This is a request to place a new sign in the arcade, as was indicated. The applicant is Ova Arts, LLC, and the address of the business is 238 East Ojai Avenue in the arcade. Your staff report contains illustration of the proposed sign. It is, I believe, consistent with your direction regarding such signs in the arcade over the last year or so. It consists of a dark background with aqua or aquamarine type colors for the border, the trim, as well as the sign or the name of the business with some additional accent colors. It would be suspended by chains and anchored by chains within the arcade. The conditions of approval require that it be consistent with the requirements and design requirements of the arcade sign criteria. And with that, staff recommends approval of the sign as proposed, and I'd be happy to try and answer any questions the commission may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Are the applicants here? Would you like to come forward and? Your names, please.
Julie Wellings, 1942 Tiara Drive.
Patty McFall, 1181 Rancho Court.
Anything you would like to tell us about your new business and moving in there?
Well, actually, we've been in business in Ojai for 4 years. We were on Signal Street.
Right.
So we just moved around the corner into the arcade. And
Okay.
we're very happy with the move, and they're doing very well there.
Great, excellent.
We tried very hard to design the sign to your specifications, so I hope we've done it correctly and we'll get your approval.
Okay, great. Thank you both very much. Commissioner comments? Commissioner Quinn?
Well, I like the sign very much, and I like that it goes with the trim on the windows, and I'm very happy with it as presented.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Yes, sir. Commissioner Hill.
I was curious about it. I love the sign. And it did conform to the ordinance. And I would like to ask about the Celtic swirls that you had in the trifold example. This is a very popular, a trendy thing in the jewelry world are Celtic knots, crosses, and swirls. So that's a
What I picked that particular one. Apparently, that symbol has a lot of different references, and I picked it because I was actually searching for signs or symbols that would apply to creativity. And that's why that one was chosen and approved by our board.
There's a very ancient sign. This predates the time of Stonehenge, the Irish artwork that they put on at Newgrange and other burial sites is really a treasure of the world. So the fact that you included it in that design, that thrilled me a lot.
Great, thank you very much.
Yes,
I like
Commissioner
it. I
Convery.
think it's very cheerful, and I like that you've worked in Ojai, and you obviously live here, so you kind of know the vibe. And a lot of people who come here and open a new business struggle with the sign issues, as you know. So I think we had a sign maker here, and he's no longer around. I don't remember that history, but if you want to have a side business helping others make signs, I recommend it.
Okay, I don't have any comments. Thank you very much. I believe we'll take a motion now.
I move that we accept the sign for usage.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please, Mr. Winiger.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Convery,
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn,
Yes.
Chairman Akins.
Yes. Thank you both very much.
May I make a comment, though?
Yes, you may.
Okay, so not about your sign, because you did a wonderful job, but in my visit to the arcade, looking at the signs, I know the dimensions, how they're supposed to be placed, but those signs are at every different level, every different everything. So I'm wondering, and my question actually is for you, is if there's a way that we could have maybe someone from the city come out there and actually adjust the signs to the dimensions that they're supposed to maintain.
The height.
The height, the width, the distance from the building. As you stand and look down the signs, they're all cocky wonks. And so I know what it's supposed to be. They're not. Many of them are not. They're up here, they're down here, they're over here. So, I don't know if your department could send someone, or Greg Grant's department, but it seems like someone from the city could go out there with actually a tape and put them where they go. The signs are lovely, but not when they're all juxtapositioned.
It's a good question. I don't know the answer because it is the arcade, that portion of it is in the public right-of-way. So I'll consult with Mr. Grant and Ms. Wold and see what can be done.
Lovely, thank you.
I would like to just comment on the height. They're also supposed to be at 96 inches.
Correct.
And when we approve a sign and it's hung, it's out of our minds, and we don't go down there to measure and be precise to see if it's working right. We presume that it is on good faith. The width of the sign, I don't think it has to be the full.
No.
Well, it does say 42 inches wide. Well, I don't know if we can get that one back in the barn, but the 96 inches, that would really give you the continuity of looking down the arcade. The problem with the signs in the arcade is that, I've mentioned this before, is that there was a period of about 2 or 3 years where somehow the approval of the signs left our arena. And why, I still don't know. But anyway, it came back, and we've been enforcing it ever since. And so the signs at the east end of the arcade might be out of whack, and down at the far west end too. But the signs in the middle that have the look of this sign that's going up, those we pretty much have steered in the right direction. But I think that's a good idea. It's a real good idea.
I'll follow up on that.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll move to discussion item, number 3 on the agenda. This is the plaque language for City of Ojai Historic Landmark number 21, the Mara Villa. we
Yes.
might want to correct that before we put the plaque together. Should be an A on the end, not an E.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, as you indicate, the staff report actually contains both spellings, but as I understand it from looking at the Historic Resources report, the Phase 1 and 2 study, it should be Maravilla, so.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, this is a request for the commission's input on the proposed plaque, which would present the background on the landmark, landmark 21, which recognizes the Maravilla Company, which was the developer, the development interest in the Arbolada, and is currently the site of the Twice Told Sales store, which is being renovated at this time. The proposed copy of the plaque is in your staff report. There was questions before the meeting regarding the dimensions of the plaque, and is indicated, it is proposed to be 9 inches tall by 7 inches wide. I don't know what the basis for those dimensions are, whether that relates to potential placement on the building itself or what drove that. So if the commission is interested in changing those dimensions, I'll be sure and follow up on that, and we'll determine what that basis was. But attachment B, page 101, does present the proposed copy of the plaque itself, and we welcome your feedback.
Great, thank you very much. John, would you like to come forward? You had some thoughts on the size?
Yeah, just that it's awful small. If it's a plaque to be noticed by people wandering around Ojai, then I do think it needs to be a bit bigger. I did have a question, though. Does our group get consulted in where it goes on the facade, or do we walk in one day and see it up?
You get to hang it.
We get to hang it.
But you have to ask us if it's okay.
Is that true?
You have to put it on the front of the building, not the back
Oh,
of
it'll
the
be on
building.
the front,
Yeah.
yes.
And get the proper permit.
No, it's just, as I looked at it, and this was circulated to all the board members of the group, so they have seen it. It looks fine. I think it's very appropriate. It fits with other signs of its type around town. We just thought that you might want to make it a little larger than the 7 by 9.
I think, aren't they all the standard size? You have one, I had one at my house at 718. They're pretty much,
They're all that size?
yeah, there's a consistency of the look. So, and I've been in many other cities that have these historic plaques, and they're
Yeah.
all similar. So you kind of, as soon as you even see that there's something on the wall, you if one's aware of it,
Well,
would know that that's what it is.
No, if that's standard, then
Yeah.
that's fine. We just wondered if it came with a magnifying glass.
Well,
No,
this one
that-
has a lot more writing,
Yeah.
the standards have, this is the home of thus and such,
Right.
built in this year, this
Yeah.
has an entire history. So
Yeah,
there's
so
a lot
no-
going on this thing.
Right, so if that's the appropriate size, then that's fine. Nope, just,
Mr. Winninger,
Thanks.
could you check on that for us,
Yeah.
please?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I would like to
Commissioner
add,
Hill.
this probably is of all the, I'd have to consult my manual, of all of the landmark signs that we have, this is probably the most verbose. This has got more text in it than I even think the one at the post office has. And you're right, as far as the amount of words on it, I think that it would be appropriate to add an inch or two. As far as the variety of sizes, if you go over to the cemetery, it's a little one. It's a real small one compared to some of the others. So, here's the thing with the arcade that I would say, since this is the first plaque that will go on the front in the arcade, I think whatever we decide on for this, that should be carried out as a template for all the rest of them, if there are other businesses to match it.
Is this considered as part of the arcade? Because you just said, you referenced it as part of the
Yeah.
arcade.
Well, it's
We're a block
arcade
up,
adjacent, yeah.
and so I'm just wondering
Oh,
if the building there is considered as part of the arcade in terms of
oh,
design
I'm
review.
sorry, I misspoke.
Oh,
I was still thinking about the jewelry shop. Yeah, but you would have more latitude then.
it's sort of a,
Yeah, you're right.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Conver.
The plaque is the same as the residential plaques that we've both had, but maybe the commercial plaques are larger in different buildings here. I'm not familiar with that. Do you know, does anyone know?
What's the size of the post office?
I don't know, but I think if there's a difference, then commercial buildings can have a standard size, and
Yeah.
residential ones don't want a big one. Residential definitely
Right.
needs the small, but, I think it's worth looking into what's on the post office so there's consistency, because the hanging of the signs in the arcade, this is all about consistency, historic preservation. So I think it's valuable, to look into that and see if it's worth it. I do think there's a lot of, I think there could be a little more streamlining of the language. There's a lot going on here. Tell him. Don't tell you. Okay.
I don't know if a copy was generated.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, is this the first reading
No,
of the language?
we're just asking for your input, so this is very timely. If you, we can look at the description and see if there's a way to perhaps condense it.
Can we ask if John and his group could elicit suggestions and then come back to us with suggestions on what to incorporate? I mean, I feel within, certain limitations and consistency, as was mentioned, that getting your input is key.
Certainly, we'll send it.
So, yes, if you could put that together and then get it to staff.
Absolutely.
And then, in the meantime, we can check and see what the size is. As I've been in and out of the Nordhoff Cemetery countless times. My wife has great uncles and great cousins and buried there. And as Commissioner Hill points out the other day, I happened to look, I guess, at the right spot in the rocks and saw this little teeny thing about that size. That's the Nordhoff Cemetery that I had missed in the previous 10 or 15 times I'd been in there, so.
It's at the far north end rather than at the entrance.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
never,
it's easy to miss, so it's, so in the meantime, we'll check on the size, but again, we would appreciate your group's suggestion. This seemed to just tie into the language that was in part of the staff report.
Mr. Chairman, we'll bring this back for your review based on your direction here.
Okay, any other suggestions other than maybe brevity and consistency? Commissioner Hill, anything else
I
that we might
just would
recommend?
say we're spoiled because in the past, Pat Clark Dorner, an accomplished best-selling author, she always wrote these. And we would debate, and we would have a committee that did this. But we were told we shouldn't have that subcommittee. And so consequently, it's become your job rather than our job. So,
Okay. So we'll leave that action item with you then, Mr. Winiger?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, John. And thank your group, too, for us. This is,
you dropped that on the floor.
Oh, my back.
okay, at this time, then, we will move to item number 4 under discussion items, Historic Resource Survey Report for Smith Hobson House / City Hall. I read through the wonderful report this afternoon. I highlighted it. Would like a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is your consideration of the draft historic resource report for the Smith Hobson House. In 2015, the City Council authorized funding for at the request of the Historic Preservation Commission, the City Council authorized funding for 2 historic resource reports. The the Historic Preservation Commission prioritized your interests as being reports for this structure right here, the Smith Hobson House, also known as City Hall, and also the Ojai Grammar School. So tonight we're asking for your feedback on the information in the historic resource report for the Smith Hobson House. Next month we'll be looking at the draft report for the Ojai Grammar School. But as is indicated in here, I'll provide a summary, is the report does provide a comprehensive background on the Smith Hobson family and their important role in Ojai. They were also important in all of Western Ventura County. And also gives background on the architects of the original structure, as well as the second structure that was built on the property, and the additions and modifications involved in the adaptive reuse of the property for Ojai City Hall. The report concludes that there is a basis in the evaluation for determining that it is eligible both for a City of Ojai landmark as well as listing on the California and National Historic Resource Registers. So at this point, I would welcome your comments on the draft. I would note that we've already identified some typos and some just information that needs to be updated or corrected, but we consider this a draft, and therefore we welcome your input.
Great, thank you very much,
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
if
sir.
I also may, the city manager did share with us that he had received several emails
Yes.
concerning support for the landmark designation, and the commission has been provided with those, and so we just want to make those part of the record. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you, and thank you to the individuals who sent their thoughts, whether it be for or against, all 4 in this case, to the city and to the Historic Preservation Commission. An item of note that has been, I think, an issue, it's recently been an issue with the Planning Commission, mentioned by them. It was an issue with us before that. The Historic Preservation, as you can see, a number of years ago, decided that it would be best to, when possible, have impartial historic resources reports done, not having it, and to have it paid for by a independent entity, which, kind of is just a bit comical right now, since the city paid for them to do a report on a city building, but that was our thought to begin with. So in selecting the people, Provenience Group, I'm guessing, is how it's pronounced? Provenance?
Providence.
Oh, okay. The several people who prepare historic reports were identified, and a committee of 3 then selected this group in order to do it. It was paid for by funds that an application was made to the city council, and the city council voted. I see Councilman Haney in the audience. I believe he was a part of that vote. The city council voted then to allocate funds to the Historic Preservation Commission in order to be able to hire independent people to provide those. So again, that's been something that we've talked about over the years, and this is the culmination of those wishes and those plans, and again, the support of the city council. So I'm grateful to have that step take place. So open it up now to no public comment. Open it up to commissioner thoughts. Anybody have anything they want to say? Commissioner Convery?
I'm looking at Commissioner Hill.
Okay.
He's bursting to speak.
Sorry, I always go that way for some reason.
When my wife and I first came to Ojai in 1959, one of the things, we love this old house down here, and it was kind of a house that showed a lot of neglect. But the most charming part of the whole thing, set aside beautiful, building itself. And I wonder about this in relationship to the designating this site as a landmark. What is the future, or what is the or the plans for the tennis court? That's probably one of the best parts of this entire property. That beautiful old tennis court, it's got so much charm. I know of maybe two places up in Montecito that are like this, that everybody raves about. But this is a treasure, but it's not in the report at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what happened or why that was left out, or is there some plan of putting up a superstructure there, or what? But we used to go out there and play tennis. Now, it's a terrible tennis court to try to play tennis on because you don't have much room to whack the ball. But it does have charm, and I would think that that should be an addition. So that's just my opinion.
Okay,
I have a comment.
yes, Commissioner Convery?
Well, I have a couple of comments. I'll start with, to the point of the tennis court. This is always referred to as an estate. And an estate isn't just the home, it's the grounds. Hearst Castle isn't just Hearst Castle, it's all of it. So, and we all know that the Smith-Hobson family designated the parklands around the home to be used as public park for the benefit of the residents, to be open and free. That was in the gift to the city, which Johnny Johnston, our mayor, witnessed. He was in the room when they gave that gift. So, and I did have a conversation with Craig Walker about this, not only designating the house as landmark status naturally, but it needs to be the entire estate and the grounds to be landmarked, to really keep that intact. How do you landmark a house and not landmark the yard? It doesn't make sense, especially when it's public parkland anyway. That's my comment. Oh, my second comment is regarding the home. And you maybe knew the family, Terry, because you were here more than 10 years before they gave the gift. But I think it would really behoove the city of Ojai to looking into at least restoring this room, because this represents the city of Ojai, and it is in desperate need of help. Libby's entire theory on making good decisions was that beautiful spaces inspire good decisions. There are a lot of decisions made in this room, and yet this room is not inspiring at this point. It could be. It's a gorgeous room. It's full of mahogany and a beautiful fireplace, but it needs paint, it needs lights, it needs new curtains, it needs help. Not serious help, just normal help. So I think that's something that we need to, and we've discussed that in here, but I think we need to really look into having the city of Ojai put its best foot forward in this home. End of comment.
Great, thank you. Yes, Commissioner Quinn.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask Commissioner Convery. So when you're speaking of the grounds, because I haven't been here at all as long as you have, but are you speaking also of the lots the city purchased, or just the part that was just the part that was the gift? Thank you.
Yeah, just the Smith-Hobson gift of land.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, that came with the house. It's all one piece.
Okay, thank you. The question I had on page 2 was, it says under 2.0 project location, it says the one-story building, and then it lists the assessor's parcel number, lies on an 8.95 acre parcel zoned residential 2. No other buildings are present on the parcel. I'm trying to figure out what is the 8.95 acres. Does that, that's
all the
just,
land behind
just
it.
right behind us.
And Help of Ojai was built on a portion of that.
Well, was it built on the portion of the 8.95 acres? Then why does it
Yes.
say only, And
One
no
know.
other
I mean,
buildings
I-
are present on the
I
parcel.
thought it was built, maybe they mean no other buildings to be landmark buildings. I don't know, that's an interesting, thing to look into. But my understanding is that Help of Ojai was built on the Smith Hobson land. And Terry, do you know?
No, I don't. That could easily be determined in your records.
Yes.
Yeah.
To find out the extent of the original, and where the property was and what buildings were on it initially, through building permits and so on. That would be, I totally agree. I had the feeling, I've been in some of those buildings down there, and there's some old buildings at the back of this property over towards
Yeah.
the Help of Ojai, and to me, they look like they are the same vintage as this building. So I'm surprised that it just said the one building.
I think, Brian, if you look at page 3, figure 3 overview
that's
of the property,
right
you can
there.
see that circular driveway, Santa Ana Street, and then I believe that's Help of Ojai. Do you see what I'm talking about on the left of the
You're looking-
picture? I'm looking
Oh,
at
in
the
picture.
photograph.
Oh, okay,
What
yes.
page- what
Yeah,
That's
right
Help of
there at the
Ojai, and
bend.
if this is
Figure
a
three on
photograph of the
page
property,
8 of
the actual
52.
property. Well, I don't know if it's the actual property, because it includes the roads and some visuals on the other side of Santa Ana Street.
Okay, just above that, on the assessor's map, let's see, we'll see if that's the same parcel number. So 239010. So 239010 seems to indicate that the parcel is essentially a square. What you can't see is where the flow of the creek goes through that property to be able to tell if there's the parcels to the west of here are included in that square. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell. There is kind of a barn, I've heard different things that is down there just the side of the creek. I've always heard of that building being referenced as being part of the Hobson family here. So again, I'm confused on, that statement, no other buildings are present on the parcel. I think what the commissioner said, are we landmarking the Smith Hobson home, being these two buildings? If you look through the report basically talks about the original house and then a second building, and then Zelma Wilson being brought in as the architect to attach to the two. So to me, that would indicate that we're talking about this home and then the building just to the left of us that's now been combined. So again, I'm confused because we know that even on the report, we know that there were one original home, then a second home or second building that came along. Doesn't talk about whatever the building is down the slope. And Help of Ojai came along much later, is what I'm told. So a little bit of confusion there.
And the gift was made in what year?
78.
78. Well, I think Zelma Wilson. She was on the commission with me in the early days, but I think she was dead by that time. And so anything that she constructed would have to be pre-gift vintage.
Let's see, where is it talking about?
Yeah, no, my comment was that it's an estate, and that it was gifted as parkland, so if we're landmarking the home, we should landmark the estate parkland as well. And I think we had this conversation with the Libby House, about landmarking of the land around it. That's why the owner of the Libby House is always submitting plans for anything he does on the grounds. It's the estate. I'm happy to landmark the home, but we need to also consider landmarking the estate lands.
I agree.
Yeah, there's a paragraph on Zelma Wilson, section 4.3.3 on page 15. It's in the attachment A, it's page 20 of 52.
Oh, yeah.
Wilson contributed an awful lot to the community and was part of the few key people who had a vision for downtown Ojai in the late 70s and early 80s that resulted in the transformation that has taken place and is continuing to take place. Do not see when she passed away. So let's kind of talk about one part at first.
We can find out about Zelma Wilson in the footnote 35 on page 15. Paula Pisani wrote an article,
Oh.
Architect Zelma Wilson died Friday. And we
That's
can-
1996?
Yeah.
Would have been that recent? Just 20 years ago? Oh, okay, great, thank you.
I'm on page 15, and I don't know what paragraph.
Go down all the way to the footnotes.
Yeah.
And I don't see anything.
Wow, she was old.
Number 35.
Councilman Hane, it's page 15 but it's page 20 of 52 in attachment A.
Okay, I got page 15, so it's page 20.
20 of 52 in attachment A.
It's May 10th.
Third from the bottom.
1996. She died May 10th,
Okay,
1996.
May 10th, 1996, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just kind of see if we can parse this out a bit. So looking through the information on the Smith-Hobson home, it lists seven attributes, I think was the word, 7 aspects of integrity. I like that it then listed the 11 items, I believe it was, for City of Ojai significance criteria. I looked through those and checked all 11, and I was feeling brilliant when I read further into the article where it said that the historical report recognized that all 11 were applicable. So from the report that I see, for me, I see no question on the need to set the Smith-Hobson house up as, to start with, an Ojai landmark. Are we all agreed on that?
I agree.
I agree.
Okay, so I think the next big question is, do we go after landmarking just the Smith-Hobson home? And perhaps its immediate grounds, and you know, what does that mean? We'll just talk with the Smith-Hobson house, home. So I think we're in agreement for landmarking that. So the question then is, do we, as a commission, want to recommend to extend that to a landmark of all of the estate? And I don't think, I'm guessing that the guidance to the people who prepared this report were given just the responsibility of doing the Smith-Hobson home.
Looks like it.
So part of the question to me would be, do we want to move forward with landmarking the Smith-Hobson home with then, once that's done, with then a secondary step of looking at landmarking the Smith-Hobson estate? Or do we want to bite the whole apple at once? So.
My comment would be to landmark the home, which is obvious from the report that we should do that. But then, instead of landmarking the ground, this is just an idea, okay, landmarking the grounds, to instead dedicate them as parkland in perpetuity, which does the same thing without the, all the regulations that go along with the landmarkings. So you've accomplished keeping it as the gift was intended, but it doesn't have to qualify in any other way for a landmark.
I have a comment.
I don't know if that's within our,
Yeah, that's not within our jurisdiction, but they did do that in the gift. They landmark it as parkland in perpetuity. We have the authority to landmark the estate and its grounds as one parcel. If we do come back, if we landmark the house now, and we next month landmark the grounds because they're part of the estate, are they two separate landmarks? You know, does that become an issue? Because I think that's wrong and cumbersome and open for trouble.
I think we,
Brian,
Let me just hear from Commissioner Hill, and then we'll,
I think that doing that, marrying the two together, is something that we should ask the city attorney, Matt Summers, what his opinion and his suggestions would be.
Just the legal aspects, because he
Yeah.
doesn't know very much about historic landmarks and property and
I
the
understand.
process. I'm just saying, it's not his fault, but it is something that I would like to look into with the National Trust for Historic Preservation, because they do this all the time, and I actually just
Yeah, that would
talked
be
to them
another.
yesterday. So I can call them in Washington DC and ask them what the protocol is.
okay. Councilman Haney.
I was just gonna interject. I think what you guys ought to have in front of you is the donation paperwork or the
The
contract.
Yeah. I have it on
Before
my
you make any
computer,
decision,
yeah.
because right now we're guessing. That should have been part of your packet if you were gonna look at the whole property, because I'm not in disagreement on how you choose to do that, but I would think you'd want all the information in front of you before you make a decision. And I do recommend taking it to the city attorney and getting his take on it. Remember, we had this discussion before about looking at the backside of the property for affordable housing. And it was a discussion only because we had put it into our RENA properties for future housing for the community. And again, that should be something that should be brought forward to you so that you can clarify, was that right or was that wrong? I think that would help the city make some determinations, and allowing this commission to do that, I think, is a great thing. So if it was wrong and we can make it a dedicated parkland, I would suggest that we do that, so that we remove this gray. And if it isn't for some reason, then go to what Cynthia's talking about and see what you can do to bring it into a parkland, to a dedicated parkland.
Yeah.
But I think you guys need more information, and I think it's available.
Okay, great,
So
thank you.
I have I have the deed, I have the copy of the deed, I think it's on my computer. We should get it from the city to make it official. But the language is parkland for all residents in perpetuity, the 8 acres or 7 and change acres. So I do have a copy of that, but
Well, and one other thing too is, it's interesting, is that if it was the way you say it is, how did Help of Ojai get some designated property on this 8.9 acres? How did we do some type of a subdivision or a sublease when technically we couldn't or shouldn't have done that? So I think those are some other questions that need to be answered at this point in time.
I think the answer to the Help of Ojai question was the language is for all community residents free of charge to use, and that they considered the Help of Ojai building sort of as a community clubhouse center on the parklands, and it's free of charge for all residents to
So
use.
then the question would have been,
Yeah.
to me, is when was it developed? How was it developed?
70s.
Why was it developed?
Yeah.
And then there's still one more building here.
Yeah.
The last building at the far west side of this property. When was that built now? Why was that built and who was that built for? So I think there's a couple questions regarding this whole property that need to be clarified. So I think your goal of taking this on tonight, but referring Matthew for some more information and from our city attorney, I think would be beneficial to the community.
Great, thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman, I also
Thank you,
point out,
Councilman.
this is going to be on your agenda for the joint meeting with the city council next week. We won't have a lot of time to go into it, but these are sort of maybe follow-up sort of questions you could share with the council, and we will actually follow up on.
Okay,
Brian, I have one more
Yes.
question. I thought we were talking about the codes on the 14th, which I think we are. That's part of that
Yes, we are.
conversation. But I would like to make a call tomorrow and find out if landmarking the whole thing at one time is a better decision than doing 2 steps. I feel like it is, and I think we have an incomplete package that Commissioner Haney pointed out as far as what's on the property. I feel like we need all the information and do it right. Do it once and do it right.
okay, thank you very much.
I would just like to say that a final decision should be done only after sufficient research has been done. And then that means examining what the boundaries are, what the 8.9 contains. I just think there needs to be some spelling it out, including the tennis court.
And I'd like to see a actual plot plan that shows that the acres that the city purchased and shows all the buildings on it. Thank you.
So, Councilman Haney, could you come to the mic so we could ask you another question? I was sitting in the meeting that night when they were having the discussion and trying to figure out exactly what the title of the property was and what the restrictions were at that time. Did they ever get that clarified?
No, I don't think we did.
Okay, so,
And I think what happened is, again, that was a discussion regarding affordable housing, and I just think it was a wish list discussion or a wish of what we might be able to do, and I don't think once we heard the community regarding it, the community wasn't for it, so we just kind of stopped thinking about it.
okay, so,
But there's another thing too, is,
Yes, sir.
we did at one time, and I don't know how we did this either, we might look into that, but remember, the city actually took over the back parkland area and did the.
community garden.
Yeah, the community garden. So again, now that's a public entity, so I don't know if that steps on any stones, but again, that might be looked at, and when did that happen, and how did it happen? And to be honest with you, we're talking to the Green Coalition right now of trying to come in here and actually access that area that's been developed and reorganize it and start coming back with another form of community garden. So if we're gonna do that, I'd really like to know what the jurisdiction is and what are the rights, so that we're not stepping on anyone's toes and that we're doing this appropriately.
Okay, great, thank you.
You know what-
Just a second. The reason I brought that up and had you come back up, because again, I was at that meeting, so the common sense things that the two of you were asking for in that meeting, nobody knew what the answer was.
We need to know.
Seriously. So I guess now the commission is joining the city council in hoping for a resolution of that. Mike, well,
Excuse me, Brian, one
Yes, sir.
more thing. Maybe Matthew can do that for the meeting, is actually, if you're allocated the time through Kathleen, is actually putting a small package together talking about this property. If we're going to talk about it in our joint session, and that's what you guys would like to make the priority, let's see if Matthew can put something, some of the things you're asking tonight, and maybe we can get something that we do have a good discussion regarding this property next Tuesday. Might move you guys along a little faster.
that would be wonderful, because my concern is in having been at that meeting, sat for hours and hours that you guys do every week, or every other week, every week nowadays, is that if we, as a Historic Preservation Commission, decide to put the landmarking the Smith-Hobson House on hold because we're stretching and going after landmarking the 8.95 acres, we're going to see every one of those seats filled because of the housing element within the valley,
Right.
who are going to fight us tooth and nail from doing that designation. So again, that's why I kind of asked, do we want to do the Smith-Hobson House now, on which I believe we have, from what we've seen, universal agreement, and get that done. I mean, it's been talked about for probably the whole time the HBC's been around. Or do we want to, I mean, it'd be nice to know the answers, but again, there is a contingent out there that is going to fight us tooth and nail for biting off that big chunk of the apple. So, again, that's my question. Do we want to go for a sure thing, or stretch it? And that's up to the commission.
I think, yeah, I was going to say, I think that you need to ask your fellow commissioners what they would like to do.
Absolutely.
I think it's a win either way. I don't know, I don't think necessarily that it's going to be a fight over affordable housing on this property anymore. But there are adjacent sites. In fact, we even have city property that we could look at. So, but I do think if you're going to attach the full 8.9 acres, that there needs to be a discussion on the restoration value, or is there a cost in restoring it? Or are you going to accept it as is? And that's what, to me, there's some questions, and you guys had that at your last meeting regarding the parcel split on 101.
Sherry's
1,000?
house.
Yeah, and
Big
that was a
Libby
big
house.
discussion over, was it the house or was it the land?
Yeah.
So you've had this discussion, so that's why I would move slowly on the land. I think you're ready to go on this, but I'll leave that up to you.
Okay, great, thank you. Commissioner Hill.
I'm going to answer or talk about two things. One, in regard to what Councilman Haney just talked about, the difference in the Shamshiri project and this is that the Shamshiri project was just on land that they were trying to adjust. This has buildings on it that need to be preserved, and Shamshiri's was just plans that would perhaps affect the landmark just to the south of it. So that was one comment. The other is, it sounds to me to make the things that Councilman Haney was talking about, the plans for the back of the property and whether or not there were some errors done in the past, that and the whole general background type of things that have been done in the past, and what we want to do, and to what extent, it sounds like there should be, and you're talking about the Green Coalition coming in there and doing something. It sounds like that there should be a master plan for the whole project, for the whole area, front to back. But I'm beginning to think that there's, right now, just judging from the letters and so on that we've received, that there's feeling in the community, and I feel that there's kind of a feeling among our commissioners that we could landmark this and get in while the going's good, before we muddy it up with, this big project as to determining what's going to go where and da-da-da-da-da. That would be, I have a feeling that that's, other than saying, I'm a little conflicted because I agree with Cindy's idea that this was an estate and the estate was dedicated to, for the community at large, and that the estate would include various aspects of it. So I think there has to be a lot done before we do an estate package, but I think we can do the building, soon.
Okay,
Have a comment?
Commissioner Quinn?
Oh, sorry.
Well, I just wanted to say, I'm unable to attend the joint meeting next week because I'm having surgery on that day. And so I'm really sorry to hear that that's the day that you would like to talk about it, because I do have lots of thoughts on this. And I also think it's kind of quick if you're going to get together a plot plan and so on for us to look at. But I do support both Commissioner Aiken and Commissioner Hill on looking at the house separately. And if there was a way to get agreement from the council that they would support making the land that should be parkland, and doing a master plan and so on, I think that would be a better way to handle it than landmarking it, because just like Mr. Shamshiri having to come to us for everything he wanted to do, if the Green Coalition wanted to come to our landmark, they would have to come before us, we would have to study that. Whereas if it's the park land, it would be determined by the correct people, and it would be either work or not. But it would do everything we want to do, which is preserve it for the public use. So if there was a way to get, I know you can't tonight, but I mean, if there was a way to get agreement from the council, then I think that would be a good way to go. but I would just like to ask if there's a way not to discuss it next Tuesday, because I'm going to be coming out of my anesthesia going, I have to get to that meeting.
The main topic of discussion, as I understand it, will be the ordinance changes. It was to be an update, more or less, to the council. This is the first time they will have seen this report as well. We weren't anticipating a lot of meaningful dialogue.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Comrie.
I have a comment. I don't think they can add packets to the meeting on Tuesday because there isn't 72 hours. I think there's a Brown Act situation with Matt trying to run around and collect information, and tomorrow's Friday, he's got Monday, the meeting's Tuesday. I don't know if that's, I mean, it's a little gray. So I actually don't know that he can add information. I have another comment, which is I think there's some confusion between Landmark and Mills Act. Ramin Shamshuri is dealing with Mills Act, which is a whole set of rules. It's a different deal. This is a landmark status. That means they don't have to subscribe to the Mills Act. It's just landmark. This is a landmark, like the cemetery, like the museum, like Twice Told Tales. That's very different than the Mills Act. So that's something I just want to make sure we're really cognizant of. You can do things differently with landmarks than you can with Mills Act protection. I really want to know what the rules are with, or what I should call the precedent, with landmarking the home and then coming back and landmarking the grounds. Can you add on to a landmark, or is it a separate landmark? My concern is making it a separate landmark because that's a weak link. And we've already seen, people wanting to do things on this parkland, which was given as a gift, that were not in keeping with the language of the gift. And so I'm very reluctant to create another weak link by having two separate landmarks for one estate. I just wonder what and Matt isn't here to answer that question about the legality of adding to a landmark as one umbrella.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. Perhaps Mr. Winiger do you have guidance on that, on landmarking and then adding to that landmark?
No, but I would be happy to give Mr. Summers a heads up that might be an issue worthy of further discussion.
I think
Okay.
we need to look at precedent on this. It's been done. I mean, it's been done in the Hudson Valley. It's been done at Hearst Castle. I think there's precedent.
Okay. So my thoughts are, again, getting back to the two-stage. If we were to table this action today and reach to extend to the additional acreage, we would have to do several steps in my mind. One, we would have to go to the city council. We would have to ask for more money because we certainly would have to go back to this group and have them do a historic resources inventory on all 8.95 acres. So basically, we're going to sit and wait for, I don't know what funding year we would maybe get the additional money, if it's available now or if it's available in the next year, starting July 1st. So that's money we would have to go after. That would delay us. Having to then do a historic resources report, this report, not to fault these folks who did I think a very thorough report, but it took us 6-8 months in order to get it. So that's possibly what would be waiting for again. So again, my preference is to move ahead to landmark the Smith-Hobson house, and then we can make a recommendation to the city council in addition to that, but still, I would like to get the Smith-Hobson house landmarked, my personal preference.
I have a question.
Yes, of course.
What's the urgency? I mean, the Smith-Hobson house, nobody's got the wrecking ball sitting outside. Nobody's going to change anything. So what is the urgency with landmarking it? Just because it's here and we got the paperwork and let's do it,
My urgency in landmarking it is the fact that having come to these meetings for 3 years before I sat on the Historic Preservation Commission, they have been talking about doing a report, writing a report, and getting this building landmarked because somewhat the consensus was, and Commissioner Hill can back me up, was the fact that here we are, the Historic Preservation Commission, sitting in an obviously historic building that's not landmarked. And that kind of is a, shame on the HPC for not getting the work done. And so rather than continue to talk about it and discuss it as we have over and over and over in this commission, I'd like to get something done.
Let me back you up, Brian. I've been on the commission 24 years, and that discussion began back then. So we've always been talking about landmarking this building. So it has gone on and on and on, and perhaps it is time to do it.
Any other discussion? Is there a motion?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry,
no,
Dee.
I just want to make a
Go
comment.
ahead, Commissioner.
I'm on the fence because I do believe this house should be landmarked. I don't think there's a big urgency. You've already gotten your 9/10 of the way there. You did it 24 years. You got your report. I just want to do it right and make sure it's the entire estate. I think that's important because I think if you go ahead and vote on this tonight and then tomorrow find out that there's an issue with making one landmark for the entire estate and you can't go back, I think that's a problem. So
Mr. Chairman, we're not asking for any action tonight. This was just a draft. We wanted your
well,
input.
then, problem solved. So, I mean, I respect what you're saying and how hard you've worked, but I do think it's worth just a little bit more digging.
Okay.
Could I ask the city staff, nevertheless, what we decide right now, and have it right on into the next meeting, to go ahead and do some research for us that would tell us more about the extent of the estate, the boundaries, et cetera, et cetera. So we have something better to do than conjecture, because there's a lot of conjecture going on here tonight.
Yes, I've made a list of issues that need to be
Okay.
addressed, and that's
Okay.
among it. And we won't have that information by Tuesday, but we'll have it when we bring it back to you.
I would like to make a request of Commissioner Comrie if she could forward the information that you have to the staff so they can then send it back out to us.
That would be great, and we'll
I think that's the
independently
proper method.
find the city records as well.
Is that agreeable to
I think it's in
you?
the city records. I think it's.
Well, just in case.
In case it's different.
Might be easier, based on the experience that night in the city council meeting, it might be quicker. If you
Oh,
could send it to
true
the
enough.
staff and then send it
Very
back out to
true.
us. Anyway, one of the reasons that I joined the Historic Preservation Commission is, again, prior to being on this, when I was sitting out in the stand, my good buddy David Mason would get his packet in the mail. He would see me at the museum and unopened hand it to me. And so I wanted my own copies, and so I sat there and waited for my turn to get on the commission. And now I have my original copies. I will tell you that I then separate out the historic reports that we get on these different entities, and I'm building an archive for the Ojai Valley Museum. And so make sure that these are incorporated into their availability of papers at the museum, because it is the research place to go to. So again, I want to thank everybody for your comments, your insight. I don't think there was anything that was said that was in disagreement with our thoughts and with the letters that people sent in. So we'll move on to item number 5 at this time. Future agenda items. Mr. Winiger?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, for March, we tentatively have, as I indicated before, the historic resource report for the grammar school. We may have the return of the gates for the museum. That is yet to be determined. And we'll see if we can bring back the Marabella plaque discussion and some resolution or recommendations on that. And we're still working on the binders, the resource binders. I thought we'd have those this evening, but the staff was gone today, so we will probably have those for you next time. I think that I think that's what we have going on for March.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a couple items on my list. One is, I see Terry has his on the left. On my left, I just turned mine in tonight. That is the California Form 700 that was just sent out to us. So that's been requested by the,
Yes, you can do that
Definitely.
electronically, or you can submit.
well, they told us that they have to have a hard copy. And so,
Can I just give this to you tonight?
Certainly.
That's what I've done in the past.
okay, yeah. So that needs to be turned in. A question I had, I attended the Planning Commission meeting, not the last one, but the one before that, which 402 Blanche was discussed by a vote of 5-1. I think there was a commissioner missing that night. The Planning Commission referred that project in their commission to staff with the indication to then relay that property to the Historic Preservation Commission.
Yes, I'm not familiar with the specifics as to the timing, but we are going to be asking for a third-party review of the historic resource report that was prepared for that property. So I suspect that will take 30 to 60 days to, if it's going to be placed on the HPC's calendar. So that would probably be more in the April timeframe, I would think. Just depends on how quickly we can turn around that third-party review.
Okay, thank you. They do fabulous work, but however, in reading through that historic resources report that was not required, I made a mistake in saying that that was required. It was actually a report that was done by the people that are making the request. But in reading through it, I was confused. So seemed almost as much pro as there was con in the information. The other project that I see coming up is 601 Pearl, which is the olive mill. It's also going to be coming before the Planning Commission in March timeframe, according to one of the information pieces I read. I've mentioned that before when it came. Little people whisper in my ear and let me know that something's coming up. So again, that's coming before the Planning Commission to try to delay that, them possibly referring that back to us, because I believe it is on our historic sites of merit. 402 Blanche is not. Possibly, we may want to look at that before it goes to the Planning Commission. If it goes to the Planning Commission, I possibly anticipate they would say, has the HPC seen this? No, it hasn't. Then we'd like to refer it back to staff to go to the HPC. Only a guess, having sat through that Planning Commission meeting. So those are the two things that I wondered about in going forward.
That goes to the issue of the HPC reviewing those historic resource reports that you have addressed previously in your meetings.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Yes, Commissioner Hill?
In regard to the house you were talking about, where there is, the report was done by the people that own the house.
Well, they were the ones that asked for it to be generated. It was not required of them.
Yeah.
I just wanted
What was the address
to correct
again?
myself. 402 Blanche.
402 Blanche, okay.
It is a private residence.
Yeah, when I heard that address, it's been at least a month and a half or so ago. I drove by that place, and is this the one that has the big round pilaster-like things in the front of it?
So
It's a Spanish,
it has like a pergola thing or
yeah,
something? on the si- on the
similar
side.
to the round
I think-
pillars thing here.
I think so.
Okay,
Remember that?
yeah, and I have some reservations about that, so. And I did, that was just for information, and I wanted to know, when you worked with the people at OVA, who counseled them to get the sign done right?
I don't know who that was. It wasn't me, Mr. Commissioner. But we've had discussions at staff that this is what the expectation
Yeah.
is.
I think you did a great job, because that one fell into the slot really nice.
Thank you.
I could say that over the Christmas holiday, they had their wrong sign
Right.
hung. And I went in there and I said, I just want to be sure that you can't keep that sign up, and I did tell them that we're very particular, and to be sure that they talked to this city and made sure that when they came, we could approve it the first time. They were very open, and they wanted to do it that way anyway, but I when I saw that sign out there, I said, oh, this is not good.
It was hung way up in the rafters. Yeah, I did that 3 times.
And again, one more clarification, because I misspoke a month ago in talking about 402 Blanche. It is a private residence. It is not on our historic sites list. And again, the Planning Commission sent it to the Historic Preservation Commission based on the age of the house and some reservations they had. They weren't sending it to us in them expressing an opinion on whether it was historic or not. They solely felt that by passing it along to the Historic Preservation Commission, again on a 5-to-1 vote, that they were offloading or putting the responsibility for the decision on the correct commission. So again, it coming to us is not a vote that it is historic or a vote that it is not historic. It's just being sent to us for, and again, I mentioned on the historic resources, the other requirement that Mr. Winiger asked for was that the historic resources report be peer-reviewed. Again, that goes back to my comment that in reading through that, I did not come away with a clear convincing on whether it was a historic property or not a historic property. And so that's why they've asked, and they felt the same way. Again, I'm paraphrasing for what I think their thoughts are, that there needed to be some clarification both for them and possibly helpful to us. So, anything else?
That's it.
I think we're done. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Oh. Yes, Council Liaison.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're back in
I just
session.
wanted to, the gates at the museum,
Yes.
didn't council direct those gates to come through HPC? I just was wondering why planning was making the decision on them and not you.
The gates for the museum came through us at the last meeting. The decision, it was I think a 4-0 decision with one abstention, was that the design was not in keeping with the setting of the museum, and so basically it was sent back to the museum to come up with another idea. It went before the Planning Commission for the reason that, a couple of reasons. One, it needed a permit, and the Planning Commission also stated that it needed a archaeological report because the museum is planning on digging and putting 2 large trees there in the courtyard, and so that was an additional requirement. So the HPC basically said, come back with a better design. The estimate was that was going to take a couple months. Mark Lewis, who was here tonight, said that Doug Lochner is going to come back with some different proposals to the museum. The Planning Commission then was to meet on that after we had basically the HPC had sent it back. So the Planning Commission basically said, well, there's really nothing for us to do tonight. Any
Right.
discussions, there weren't. And so I know the executive director, myself, and one other person for the museum were here in case there were questions.
Yeah, I
But
think there was
weren't.
some confusion because the council funded those gates.
Yes.
So it was, that's where I get lost in it, how it keeps coming back from planning to HPC, back to planning, back, it's, it seems like it's been a pretty easy thing to get accomplished. But we're back into the cycle of,
It was delayed also, and yes, we appreciate, we speaking as a member of the museum at the moment, we appreciate the funding support, and it's still there. It was still in the last budget that was approved. The design was given to Doug Lochner. It was delayed because Doug Lochner was working on a major piece of equipment at the playground. And so once he was able to finish that, then he came and he presented multiple plans to the museum board. I abstained from all conversations in that, all votes. And then once that was decided, then it was going through the hurdles that are required in order to get something before the HPC. So it's still
Yeah,
circling.
it's still circulating, okay.
It is.
That was my question.
But again, it has had its initial hearings, both here at the HPC and at the Planning Commission. And so, as Mr. Winiger expressed, that may be back in March, possibly April. The ball is in Doug Lochner's court at the moment.
I think another important thing is the 402 Blanche home. I think you guys discussed that a little bit too. I think Cynthia had some comments on it at the last meeting. I live in a 55-year-old, almost 60-year-old tract home, and I'd hate to see it when it turns 100 for someone to think that, you know what, that might have some significance to this community. We're an old community, so I'm glad that I'm glad that they decided to do the research, and I'm glad that we're all looking at it and that we can, as a community, make the appropriate decision. But I'm just trying to say a 100-year-old home doesn't necessarily make it a.
It would be just a baby on the East Coast, wouldn't
Yes,
it?
it would be.
Yes, it would.
All right, thank you.
When I go back east, I'm always explaining that 100 years old is really old in California. They laugh. Okay, I think we're adjourned.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Brian.
Pass that down to Mr. Winiger.
Yep. Oh,
Mr. Winiger, here's my submission for the 700.
very much.
okay.
Hey, Cynthia, are you just sending out your report to them? Oh, okay, you don't have that could be. Oh, you are.